Hi, Comm 130. It's Sister Peterson. Welcome to week six. Week six. Wow, we're almost halfway done, which is exciting. I'm going to go ahead and start by a prayer. And then what I'm going to address in this video is so we're going to be covering the eyedropper color palette. And we're going to be covering quote boxes and how to make sure you're not creating tangents with those. I'm going to show you some typography tips too as well. Applying a gradient, lowering the opacity on images, and then I'm just going to go through how I choose fonts the easiest way. And that's kind of it. And then there's a few tips in there and tricks that I'm going to be showing you along the way that may make your life easier when you're actually designing. So we can go through that. And I think that's pretty much it. So let me go ahead and say a prayer. I'm going to try and make this video as fast as I can while demoing things. It may be over 20 minutes, but I'll try and keep it fast. Okay? All right. Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for this wonderful day. We're so grateful for Thee and the blessings that Thou hast given us. We're grateful for our prophet and our leaders, and that they are guided and directed through Thy Spirit, that they may give us modern day revelation. We're grateful for the beautiful ability to create, and that we may feel inspiration and guidance through Thee as we create pictures that are pleasing unto Thee, or pieces that are pleasing unto Thee. We're grateful for the ability to learn and grow, and that we are continually able to have education at our fingertips through technology and through other resources. We're grateful for Thy gospel and that it gives us purpose in our lives. And please bless us now as we go through this live demo, that the technology will be able to perform, and that we'll be able to learn things that will be pleasing to the students, and that they can improve their projects and improve their experience in InDesign too in their personal lives, that they are and comfort through Thee, especially as they're coming across challenges of learning these new programs, and that they are challenging and frustrating at times, but that they may seek guidance and peace through Thee and Thy Spirit as they're learning and growing, and that they may be able to retain their information and challenges that they're learning and grow from them. And please help me also to be able to listen to the students and know what direction I need to go in my teaching, so that I can meet their needs and be able to make this a positive experience for them. We love Thee so very much, Heavenly Father. We're so grateful for Thee and the blessings that Thou continues to give us. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Why isn't the button here? There it is. Okay, we're good. All right. So like I said in my prayer, that I know this is a new experience for you. I want you to understand that I've been there. I know what it's like to learn these programs, and I know that it is a struggle and it's hard. Please use your resources available to you. Please use the tutors, and please take advantage of that resource. Please also, if you're struggling, if you're falling behind on something, message me and let me know. Maybe we can set up an appointment where we can meet one-on-one and I can help you out with that. It's hard to teach these courses online, but I do want this to be a good experience for you, so I'm going to help you as much as I can, but I don't know how to help you if you're not reaching out to me, okay? Let's go ahead and get started with InDesign. So I know your pain and what you've been going through this week in InDesign. Like I said, I've been there, but I also decided that I would do my own magazine spread along with you as part of the assignment, so that I can just say I've done it with you. I'm working with you guys. I'm trying to be on the same page with you and sympathize with you. And so I made my own magazine spread. And I'm probably going to just hand it over to Brother Libert as an example that he can use. But here, oh, and I just noticed I had a widow. right there. I'll need to go in and fix that. Let's talk about fixing widows real quick, because I know some of you have run into widows. Widows are a word on a line by itself. How you can avoid widows. There's two different things you can do. You can resize your text box, which I actually don't want to do because I have them a specific size all the way around that I've created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this whole thing and see if this works. But I'm going to go up to the top right-hand corner and click on the A, which is my character formatting tool. And I'm going to click on it. And then right here, the V and the A with a double arrow below it, I'm going to just click that. And that increases my tracking there. I'm not going to go above 20, but I hit 20. And that actually brought a word down. So I don't have a widow anymore. If you go too high, like for example, and I just highlighted the paragraph so it's all consistent with that paragraph. But if you go too high, you start to notice. It's pretty obvious. So I wouldn't go above 20 and I wouldn't go below 20, because you could also go negative. You can bring it in 22. But see what that did? That actually created an orphan here, which is a whole line, the first line, or it could be the last line of a paragraph by itself. So you want to avoid both of those. So I'm going to just increase to 20. There we go. And that got rid of my widow. Nice. Now I don't know if that affected any of my other, so I'm going to check real quick. And we're looking good still. All right. But one thing I want to point out with typography, script is the hardest thing to group together. But when working with typography, the best thing to do is to work with separate text boxes, especially when you're contrasting. So when I'm contrasting script font with a sans serif font, I'm working with a lot of descenders and ascenders that are really tall versus normal fonts, just because they're a lot more flowy and scripty. So what I've done to unify these and group them together, because it often looks weird when you have all this extra space because of the descenders and you have trapped white space there, which really is not appealing. So overlap. Sometimes it's actually okay, to overlap. And see how I've overlapped the text, as long as the text is still easily readable, which it is. I also want you to notice that I've created a diagonal alignment here, and instead of aligning the O with the T here, I decided because of this descender, it would be more beneficial to align the of holiness with the TH there. That's still alignment. This is still a form of alignment. It's just more artistic alignment because I'm not taking the obvious alignment around. But I still took the time to align the O with the H and create this nice diagonal line too as well, which is a different form of alignment. So that's another thing I wanted to point out. This is thinking a little bit more outside the box with alignment, and I wanted to share that with you. And then this too is thinking a little bit more outside the box. We still align these lines here, but instead of putting by Carol McConkie in the center, I decided to add a little asymmetry to add some interest, because we already have some asymmetry going here. And I wanted to continue my diagonal line right here too. So I decided to put this a little bit more asymmetrical, and that just adds interest, but it's still, everything's aligned, it's still following the principles, it's just thinking a little differently. So I wanted to share that with you as I'm working this. And I'm only working with two fonts, the scripty font and then the sans serif font, but the sans serif has so many different different ways you can use the font, whether it's thin, italic, bold, black. So it gives me so many different options, okay? And then I have the second page here where I've added where I've added some text wrap here and my subtitles. And then to create some unity and rhythm and repetition, I created that same asymmetry with the lines down here. I aligned continuing on page 4 right here and created those lines. I also added my quote here, which I'm going to go over because I know that was one of the questions. And some opacity of the image, which was one of the questions too as well. and then following repetition with the color too as well. So we're going to go over all of this, how to add drop shadows, how to add strokes to images, all of that here in this video, okay? So I have this template that I'm working with. And like I mentioned before, I put my title in 2 different text boxes. I highly recommend doing that. Instead of hitting enter and having your text go to the next line, if you work in 2 separate text boxes, this allows you to play around with your alignment better and do your overlap, okay? Sorry, excuse me. So first question first. I had the question of how I choose my fonts easily. And so really you can't put it into categories, unfortunately, but this is how I love to look through fonts. I like to highlight my font first by grabbing the type tool and just double clicking in there. And then I come over here and I double click on the name of the font. And I'm up here in my character formatting, basically toolbar, okay? And then I hit down. And if I hit down, it actually just scrolls through my fonts. So I can just look at each font until I find a font that I want. And I can go quick, slow, whatever, but it shows me all the fonts. So that's what I would recommend doing. It's the easiest way to go through your fonts is to just go click there and click the down arrow. And hopefully that helps you. But unfortunately, there's no real way to organize your fonts yet. So you can definitely send that over to Adobe as a suggestion. Okay, the second thing, opaque images. How do I use opaque images? So first things first is I bring my image in here. And this image is actually a pretty good example because I have, actually, you know what, I'm going to have these images because this is going to have text that goes over it. This one's really not going to. But when dealing with opaque images, I click on the image and then I lower the opacity up here. So once I've clicked on the image, I have this toolbar up here that allows me to do things. There is the opacity here. And it says 100%. I just click on that. That lowers the opacity. And that actually makes it so that the image is not so distracting. You can put text on top of it. When you put a lot of text on there, I highly recommend going lower, 20%, 30%, in that range, because then it won't compete with the text and it won't feel like they're fighting each other. And that's a lot better. So that's my suggestion for opacity, is when you do want text on top of it, lower it down to the 20% or the 30%. If you just type in, I mean, if you just click in here and you can type in too as well what you would like. So that's fun, or you have the slider, okay? So hopefully that answers the opaque question. I think that was pretty much the question on that. The next thing is the eyedropper, hold on, the color theme eyedropper. So if you've noticed, if you clicked on this eyedropper color theme tool and you click on the image, it gives you a whole bunch of swatches, right? And you can click anywhere on these images too. Let me click off so it gives me the options that I want. But anyways, you click anywhere on these images, it gives you a whole bunch of options. Now I get the question, how do I apply those colors to it? How does this eyedropper work? Well, essentially it's giving you options once you've clicked, and it gives you a theme, a color scheme theme to go off of. I really like this tool because it helps me. I use this tool when I was working on this example entirely. I got my color themes from there. This time when I clicked, I got a little bit different colors, but that's okay. But anyways, if I click this little play arrow button right next to it, it gives me options. Oh, that's probably why I got a different theme right there. That's the colors I went off of. But anyways, it gives you different options that you can go through, and you can pick what color scheme you like the best and play with that. And then once you get your color scheme, you go ahead and click this swatch button and then plus right next to it. And what it does is it adds all those colors to your swatches over here. Or if you hit your drop down here, you'll see muted theme right there. And it's a little folder that holds all your swatches. So that's how you're going to grab those swatches. For example, I'm going to go up here, and now I'm going to add those colors to this text. And I'm going to come up here to my text tool. You have two ways of changing your text color. You can grab it from here, and you can grab it from here. So I'm going to grab it from here. I'm going to scroll down to my muted theme. And there's the colors that I want. So I'm going to grab that nice peach color, which I loved. And then I want to make this more of a gray color, but it didn't really give me gray options. So I'm going to highlight this text below. I'm going to come back to my color, my muted color theme here. And I'm going to click a color. I'm going to click a cool color, which is this blue. And then I'm going to come over here to my color palette. And I'm going to play around with that color to try and get it more of a gray color or cool color that I want, which this isn't really giving me my grays that I want. So I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to click, which is this menu option. It's a whole bunch of lines. If you click on that and choose CMYK, because we're printing, so we want to work in CMYK, then I can come over to the K and add some more gray tones to it. It's not quite what I want yet. Maybe over here and lighten that. And that way the gray is kind of fitting with my theme. It's still kind of the same color tones as my theme that I'm working with. And that's how I kind of pick my grays. But that's not really as pretty as I want it to be. So let's see. It's just a whole bunch of playing around with it too. Sometimes you just have to commit to black and then lower this down to a gray color if you can't get it. But anyways, I'm pretty much like that. I maybe go a little lighter. All right. Now, when you are doing the overlap, make sure your colors are different and that the value is pretty different too. So this value is getting a little close for my taste. Maybe I would like to lighten the gray just a little bit so that there's still enough contrast that if your audience is colorblind, that these colors are not too similar in value. The nice thing too is, can you do it in Illustrator? Let me look. I know you can do it in Photoshop, but let me double check. Maybe you can't do it in Illustrator. I mean, InDesign, sorry. I'll have to show you in Photoshop. But anyways, so that's how I use that color palette. And then I'll go through and I'll add those colors. And those colors will always be under my swatches here, under muted themes. And I can get different ones too as well. If I wanted to work with these grays now, I can click the eyedropper and click. And now it gave me some other options. Oops, didn't give me the grays that I wanted. There we go. The grays and the pinks, and now I can add that to my muted color theme number 2. And you can even go in here and you can rename them if you want. So it's something that's more organized and works with you. Another typography tip. I always get this because you're working in an article. How do I make the first letter of the paragraph larger when I'm starting my article? Highlight the whole paragraph, come into the paragraph formatting tool and click on that. And then right here where it has the A and it's larger in the paragraph, if you just click that a couple of times, it makes your A larger. Oh, nice. Thanks, Sister Peterson. You're welcome. All right, next thing, gradients. Let's talk about gradients. That was a question I got. I actually made this piece, I want you to know, off of your suggestions. So I made sure I had gradient involved in this piece. I made sure that I had opaque images that I was working with. So that's the fun part. So anyways, I am working with gradient on the background. So I made a square using the rectangle tool across the whole background, right? Now, I want to make a gradient so that these two images will blend a little bit better with this background. So I'm going to come over to my gradient tool, and if you're not seeing a gradient tool, if you go Window, Color, it's hidden under Color, and then Gradient, it'll pull it up, okay? First things first is I'm going to click on the gradient, and it's going to make this lovely black and white gradient. I'm going to right-click and grab my black arrow tool, right-click, and go Arrange, Send Back, so that it's in the back behind the images. Okay. Now, the question was, how do I get colors onto this gradient so that I can match this? Well, I like to pull my gradient tool off of the toolbar, and you can do that by just clicking on this black bar here, and you can pull it off. And then I like to click on my swatches and pull up my swatches. Oh, my gradient still needs to go down a little. And then I'm going to pull up my theme because I have this nice blue and this peach on here. And I'm just going to click on these swatches, click, pull, and drag. So I click, pulled, and dragged. And I dragged them right onto my gradient, and it adds it on there. Now, if you notice, I had a black box there. If I just click on that black box it's selected, I can just pull that off if I don't want it. Pull it off and it deletes it. Nice. Super easy, super user-friendly. So again, I'm going to find another color I want to work with, this tan. I'm just going to click on it, click on the swatch. So I'm clicking on the actual square itself. Click, pull, and drag onto here. Get rid of this white swatch. So that's one way. Or I have this white swatch, right? I want to make this white swatch blue. I can just click on that swatch and select it and then click on, oops, that didn't work. I guess it doesn't do that anymore. So I just had to click, pull, and drag, essentially. So click, pull, and drag down to my gradient, and then drag off the pieces you don't want, okay? Oops, I did want that. All right, so I'm working with gradient. Now it kind of looks like there's a mixture of blue. I'm just gonna have the blue on the edges here, but now this gradient will allow you to slide this slider around. You can slide these top ones to make the gradient less gradual or more gradual. That's what these sliders will do here. Or you can grab the gradient tool right here and click on that, and then actually click, pull, and drag, and it allows you to decide kind of what angle you want the gradient to go at. You also have the option of doing types, like I could do a radial gradient, a linear. But anyways, so that's the gradient tool and how to play around with that. Hopefully that helps you in figuring out your colors. Now I have this gradient tool on here. I'm going to make this a little bit more opaque just because I like to work with more muted colors in the background. So I'm just going to click on it and then lower the opacity up here. Now these images, if you look at my draft here, I have these images blending into my gradient background. How did I do that? Because they're two separate images. Well, I'm going to tell you. Without using Photoshop, because normally the process I would go to is just pull it into Photoshop and make it, you know, get rid of the edges. But because you're just learning InDesign, I'm going to teach you how to do it in InDesign. It's not as effective as Photoshop, but it still does the trick. So I'm going to click on, select the object here. I'm going to go to Object. I'm going to go to Effects. So always remember, when I'm working with objects, I can do things to that object under the Object menu. So Object, Effects. And then I'm going to hit Basic Feather here. So Object Effects, Basic Feather. And I'm going to move this so you guys can't, well, we'll just do it there. Basic Feather. Now, if you're not seeing anything, it's already doing a feather. If you're not seeing that, click this preview option right here. And then right up here with feather width, I just increase this a little bit. And you see that it's slowly starting to blend the edges of that image in with the background. So you can go in there and go as much as you want, and it's slowly feathering it so you're not having those harsh edges anymore. And then I hit OK. And see, it just barely blends it in. And I'm going to do the same on this one. So Object, Effects, Basic Feather. Click on that. Make sure I have Preview selected, and then I'm going to increase my feather width here, and it's going to slowly blend that image in with the gradient that I have going on. Now, to top it off so that this blends with that background a little bit, I'm going to lower the opacity on the image just a little bit so it's a little bit more subtle, but still there. And these are images that I took because that's part of the assignment, is that you have to take at least 2 of your own images. Some of the other images I borrowed, and I'm going to give credit to them on the blog, but I at least took 2 images myself, right? Now, I'm not a huge fan of how this, because it looks like there's a lot more blue in the center, so I'm going to go over to my gradient. I'm going to select my shape, go over to my gradient, and maybe move this a little bit more so there's more green in the center, and maybe even play around with my angle. Till I get it right. Maybe I even want to just do that. But anyways, so it's kind of, you play with it until you feel like it looks more natural. I'm not going to spend too much time in there because I'm live. But anyways, that's how I blended my images. I created a gradient. I added colors to it. That was all part of the list. Let's talk about, we talked about lowering the opacity. Let's talk about framing the quote box, and we'll be good to go. So let me go back over here, because essentially that's what I did here. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to paste it in here. Okay. And I'm about to show you too. Do you notice how my text box has these lines right here? I'm going to show you how to do that, because that's a question that I've gotten in the past. When you're trying to apply a text wrap, and this image right here has a text wrap around it. It's easy because it's a separate image to apply a text wrap. But when I'm working with an image in the background that I want it to kind of avoid, or right here, do you notice how I have it kind of going along Christ's shoulder here? How do I do that? Since this is a whole background image, I don't, if I did a text wrap, it would appear up here. So I'm going to show you how to do that. You're going to use your pen tool for that, and then I'll show you about the text box. So your pen tool is going to be located right here. It looks like a little old-fashioned pen. So I'm going to click on that pen tool. I'm going to actually come over here, and if you hover over the line, let me select it first. So I'm going to get the black arrow, select the box, go back to my pen tool. It's shortcut P if you want to do that. And I'm going to hover on the box, and I'm just, as you hover it, you'll see that the pen tool gets a little plus sign on it. That means that you can add a point there. And you can hover over here, and I add another point there. So I have 1 point, 2 point, 3 points on my box, right? Now, let's say I added another point and I don't like it and I want to delete it. If you hover over that same point, you'll notice that pen tool will turn into the minus sign, and it'll get rid of that point. Anyways, now I'm going to grab my white arrow tool, which is the direct select tool. This allows you to select points directly. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click off of my selection. So I just click over here randomly. And then I'm going to hover over the corner, and you'll see that the point highlights. I'm going to click on that and pull that point. So I'm pulling and dragging, pull that point over here, and that adjusts the text box. So it's kind of like how we made a random shape for our pictures, and we placed it in there with the activity. I'm doing that same thing with the text box, basically manipulating my text box to like, so the text will only fit in this frame that I put it in. Now, if I hold on the pen tool, you'll see the converter direction point tool right underneath it. If you click on that, it looks like an arrow or a triangle without a bottom. If I click on this middle point, click, pull, and drag, it creates these handlebars, which makes a curved line. So I just click on that, and then if I want to adjust those points again, I can click on the direct select tool, select a point, pull it around, you know, so that this will go kind of around the Savior, and not really block him, because I don't want him to block him. I just want it to go around it. So that's one way of also text wrapping, and that's what I kind of did on this box too, is I created points in there and adjusted the text box to fit it. Now, the key to text box, quote box, is to make a shape and then make a text box. So these are all separate objects. So I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to draw a shape using the rectangle tool and click, pull, and drag all the way to my bleed marks. Now this one has a stroke, and that'll work too, because you want a stroke. That'll work around, and that you can still do a text wrap on that stroke specifically, but maybe that's what you want. But either way, you could do just a stroke, or you could do a shape. I'll just leave the stroke there for a second, because I know a lot of you are just doing strokes. And then I'm going to create a text box, and I'm going to create that text box separately. So click, pull, and drag. I'm not going to put a stroke or a color fill in this text box. Otherwise, you run into tangents. Now let me go ahead and get this quote. Whoops, that's not what I want. P.S. I made these quotes larger, and that's why. If you notice, they're just its own little box. In fact, let me hit W so you can see it. See its own little text box right there. And I just made those quotes larger to fit in there. That's how you go about doing that. Fun, Sister Peterson, thank you. Okay, now I just copied that text in there. I'm going to highlight that and make that gray right now. So I'm going to come back to my swatches, my muted theme, grab that gray, click on it, boom. Now I'm going to make my text box as close to the text as I can. Here's why. So I bring it in tight, close around the whole text, because I'm going to select this stroke here, this shape. Maybe I'm going to try to. There we go. The hard part about strokes is you actually have to click on the stroke itself. And then I'm going to click on the text, and I've highlighted them both. Then I'm going to go up here. These allow you to help you align easily. So first things first, you're going to see this option right here in the corner. It's a little triangle, a big triangle. They're kind of faded, and there's an arrow pointing down. If you click on that, it says align to selection, align to key objects, align to margin, align to page, align to spread. I'm wanting these two shapes to align to each other. So I'm just going to click align to a selection. And then I'm going to hit align vertically, which means this will center the text exactly in the middle of the shape. See how it did that for me? I didn't have to do any measurements. That's so awesome. You can also do it horizontally too and have it directly in the center that way, but I didn't want to do that because I wanted a little asymmetry in here, like it's coming out of the shape, but that's an option. So what that does is that creates plenty of space between your text and your stroke around the text. Now, because I have such a busy background, I'm not going to want to do it this way. I'm going to actually want to add a color in the background. So I'm just going to click on the separate shape. I'm going to come over to my swatches. I'm going to make sure that the stroke is on bottom and the fill is on top. Awesome. And I'm going to grab my color that I want in there. And then I'm going to choose a nice little color for the inside, maybe one of these tan colors, a light color, so that there's value contrast that this is easy to read. I want to get rid of my stroke. So I'm going to click on that shape again using the black arrow and click on my stroke option, come over to colors, hit no fill the stroke. That way it gets rid of that. Awesome. And then I'm going to add a drop shadow. So this kind of looks like it's coming out of the page. So I'm going to go, because this is again an object, I can do things through the object, go object, effects, drop shadow, and it'll add a drop shadow there. If you don't see the drop shadow, hit preview. Sister Peterson rule on drop shadows is keep it light, keep it tight. And then there was something about keeping it right, but I can't ever remember that. So keep it light and tight. This is way too mucky and dark. So I'm going to come over to the opacity, and I always recommend keeping your opacity around the 30s and the 20s. I like 20s because I like a very subtle drop shadow. I don't want you to really know it's there. I want you to just feel the illusion of it coming out. If the drop shadow is too dark, it gets cheesy and mucky, and drop shadows are done incorrectly all the time. So I'm going to teach you this from the beginning. Keep it light. Give me 20% opacity on that, okay? And then you can keep it tight by the distance, and you can hit these up arrows or these down arrows. And if you notice, the up arrow makes it further away. Down arrow will keep it tighter in there. So it's just a little bit coming out at you, okay? And then hit OK. Fun. Okay, there was one other thing I wanted to show you. Okay, so underneath the eyedropper, let's say you're just wanting to eyedrop individual colors. You can do that by hitting the eyedropper that's hidden under the color theme tool. And then you just have your eyedropper tool. So let's say I have, this isn't a title, but let's say this is a title and I just want it to eyedrop to match this one. I can click the eyedropper. It will match that title exactly. The color, the font, everything. Okay, that's all I really wanted to show you. In the end, I went in there and I spent, you know, an hour or two. This is going to be an hour, and I know you're going to be frustrated because I only spent an hour on this, and you're probably going to spend a lot longer, but that is only because I am way more familiar with these tools and I've worked with them. I'm telling you, as a perfectionist, I went back in here after an hour before I started working on this video, adjusting it and doing things, and I spend 8 hours a day designing in these programs, so I've had a lot more time with it. But I do want you to know that I'm taking the time to do your assignments with you so that I'm familiar with them. I can help you out with these. So please let me know how I can help you. Hopefully this gives you inspiration to kind of think outside the box, whether it's with your typography, whether it's with your asymmetry in your boxes, or just finding a way to add creativity to your backgrounds. But as I said, I'm here to help, and that's it. So good luck on your projects. You guys are doing wonderful. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. I've been really impressed with how you've been picking up on a lot of things by yourself without even asking for help. So that's good. I hope you're not just struggling through this without my help. But anyways, I care a great deal about you guys. I pray about you, and good luck this week. Let me know how I can help.